Hey Dosers, it's Kristen from the Fallbrook campus. I don't know about you, but Pete Holmes is hilarious. He's one of my favorite comedians of all times, and I saw him recently on the George Janko show. It's a podcast, and he was like, "Hey Pete, I heard you used to be a Christian. What happened? I read that it was the divorce." And Pete's like, "Yeah, you're totally right. I got married really young, and unfortunately my wife decided to have an affair and leave me. And ever since then, my faith sort of just unraveled." He's like, because, I felt like I had made a deal with God. I was a good guy. I read my Bible. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. I didn't swear. I went to church. I witnessed to people. And then I feel like all this happened and God just sort of left me flailing in the wind. And he's like, I know the Bible probably doesn't teach that, but that was my interpretation. And I felt like I was paying into this protection service, yet not getting protected. Or like he used the analogy of the mafia. He's like, it was like I was paying a portion of my income to the mafia, but my bakery was still burning down. So I'm just like, what the heck? I guess I have to rethink my whole idea of who God is. And unfortunately, Pete landed on the idea that then I guess just God doesn't exist. And I don't know if you resonate with this on some level of just this false gospel, this false thinking of if my life is bad, I must be bad. Or if my life is good, I must be good. Or thinking that if something's going wrong or we're facing temptation, maybe God has abandoned us. And this is just such a classic tactic of the enemy. And he even uses this same tactic with Jesus. In Matthew 4, 1 through 11, we see that Jesus had just been baptized and the Spirit of God had led him out into the wilderness. And Satan comes to him 3 different times to tempt him. And the first time he says, if you're the Son of God, command these stones to become bread, after Jesus had been fasting for 40 days. And Jesus said, man shall not live on bread alone, but every word that comes from the mouth of God. And then he takes him up to the temple and he says, throw yourself down because the angels are going to save you. And Jesus says, no. And then again, he says, well, then just worship me and I'll give you everything you see. And Jesus finally just says, get away from me. And Satan does. Satan leaves him. And here's the interesting thing about this story is that there was no person ever more filled with the Holy Spirit than Jesus, right? There was no one who was ever more pleasing to God than Jesus, right? He even says, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased when Jesus comes out of the water from his baptism. Yet, look at Jesus's life. Look at what's happening to him. And the devil's basically saying, you don't have to accept any of the suffering that's coming your way. You've got the power. Who's going to stop you? You can get the crown without the cross, go around the plan. Who's stopping you? You're God. Nobody can stop you. Here's what the scriptures say. You got this. Basically, Satan is saying you don't have to be their substitute. You can just be an example like any other religious figure, like any other religion where it's all about live this way and God will bless you. You can lead them right into that. He's attacking the very heart of the gospel. And the bottom line is for me and you, when we look at our life and we see that things aren't going well, we might, like Pete, assume that means maybe God has left me. But what we see from this account of Jesus is no, like when we're making spiritual progress, that might actually be the time when a spiritual attack comes. In John 1:12, it says, to all who believed, to them he gave the right to be called children of God. We're pleasing to God because of who Jesus is, of what he did, not because of what we bring to the table, not because of what we do. But Satan wants to switch that a little bit to say, why don't you try to live a life pleasing to God and have him accept you? And Jesus says, no, I came to live the life you couldn't live so that you will be made acceptable to God through me. So don't give in to the lie that we are somehow hopelessly failed or flawed, and that's why maybe our life isn't going well because God is displeased with us. But hear the words of God that I am pleased with you because you're my child at the moment of belief and acceptance, and I am not taking my hand away from you.
Thanks for joining us on the Daily Dose. We would love to be able to get you more content. Put in the comments below what other topics you'd like us to cover. Thanks for joining us. Remember, like and subscribe.